Start relinquishing your control. Now, keep in mind that yes, we have control over some things, but not everything that we do in life are we going to be able to have control over, and you need to be okay with it. You can have a plan A through Z, and things are not going to go exactly as planned, and we need to be okay with that, especially in the entrepreneurship realm. So take a listen to Stasi as she explains her entire journey and what led her to where she is now and where she's going. Hello, fellow mompreneurs. Welcome to the Real Moms Podcast, the go-to space for resilient entrepreneurs who are striving for abundant living. I'm your host, Shay Spitz, a mompreneur and a realtor here in Columbus, Nebraska. Are you a mom juggling the hustle of entrepreneurship, family life, and personal growth? Well, you're in the right place. On this podcast, we dive deep into the real, unfiltered stories of incredible women who are navigating the journey of mompreneurship. We'll celebrate the victories, share practical insights, and acknowledge that it's okay to face challenges along the way. Success isn't about the destination. It's about the journey and the growth we experience as we balance our careers and the chaos of family life. Whether you're a seasoned mompreneur or just starting on this exciting path, join me and our amazing guests as we explore what it truly means to be a resilient entrepreneur striving for abundant living. Get ready for real, raw, and remarkable conversations that will inspire and uplift you. Because here at the Real Moms Podcast, we believe in the power of community, authenticity, and the strength that comes from embracing the journey together. So grab your coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into the world of mompreneurship. This is the Real Moms Podcast, where we celebrate the hustle, honor the struggle, and thrive as resilient entrepreneurs living abundantly. Welcome to another episode of Real Moms Podcast. I like to start every podcast off with a motivational quote, and today's quote is, "Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is fear walking." So today I have Stasi Grenfell. Stasi Grenfell brings nearly 20 years of business management to her role as CEO of Victress MVMT. As co-owner of Victress MVMT's flagship location in Lincoln, Nebraska, Stasi also understands the unique set of skills required to manage and grow a small business. Stasi and her co-founder, Stacey Osborne's strength training programs cater to women of all stages of life, from young adult, prenatal, postpartum, and menopause, providing a supportive community and medical-backed fitness training. Stasi has an unwavering passion for spreading the Victress movement of empowering women through strength training in all stages of life. So Stasi, thank you so much for being here. What does Victress stand for?
Strong woman. So it is a really simple, a victorious woman. So when we were looking for a brand name, we wanted a very strong word, and we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into just fitness because we do so much more than that. And so we narrowed it down to a few different words, and that's what we came up with.
That's awesome. I love it. So what got you into this journey? Because I love fitness. I think health and fitness is really the backbone of anybody's success, not just for women, but everybody and in general, but of all stages of life. I've always enjoyed health. I've always enjoyed fitness. But what got you guys started in this journey, and how long ago?
Sure. So we started technically in 2018. I was pregnant with my second child. I'll kind of give you my experience and story, and I'll integrate Stacey in there as well, because it is really important because we did this together. And both of our stories collided in a way that made this a very magical experience, I think, for ourselves, but also for the community. So for me, fitness has always been a part of my life. Movement's always been a part of my life. I was an athlete, three-sport athlete in high school. I went to college for softball. And always moving. I'm just a very active individual. I ran a marathon in 2015, got married in 2016, fell pregnant almost immediately, and I gained 65 pounds with my first child. He was almost 10 pounds when he was born. Breech, I had a C-section, very traumatic. And I did not feel like my body was my own, right? Like my body felt totally foreign, movement felt foreign. And then about 8 months postpartum, I stopped breastfeeding and I got pregnant again. And so I was still heavy and still couldn't move very well and freaking out. And I have a very vivid memory of sitting on the couch crying, texting my husband, I need a personal
Mhm.
trainer. Like, I can't do this. Like, I have to move this pregnancy and I need to do it appropriately. I knew how to lift weights. I knew what to do. I just didn't know what like adaptations I needed to do in terms of being pregnant.
Right.
And so I looked around for a personal trainer. I called Bryan Hospital in Lincoln. I called CHI, and I'm like, does anybody have prenatal experience? And really, there wasn't anyone. And so two different people referred me to my business partner, Stacy. She had just gotten a certification in BirthFit, which is like a national affiliation
Oh,
um, specific to prenatal and postpartum personal training. And they come from kind of a CrossFit background, so it's very heavy in strength training and just like the core fundamental functional movements. And so
mhm.
I reached out to Stacy and she kind of avoided me. Like she was very busy and burnt out with her job. She was working for a tech company in Lincoln, weird hours. And but she finally reluctantly, I think, had a meeting with me and we just hit it off. You know, like we have a son that's only a month apart. We both have had like a transformative experience during those pregnancies. Mine was in a negative way, but hers was in an empowering way because she lifted through her whole pregnancy and she's like, listen, I can help you. I went through this experience and you can too. And so she trained me through the pregnancy. About a month into her training me, she came to a session and she's like, I quit my job. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do? She's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I just am so burnt out. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I quit on a whim and I think I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna train people. And I'm like, well, are you gonna start a business or are you just she's like, I don't know. And she was charging me like nothing, like $12 an hour for a session. Like personal training now is like 60, 70, $75 an hour, even 100 for certain
Yeah.
times. And so with my experience, I had started my business experience in terms of ownership started in parallel with my pregnancies. So I opened a business in 2017, right before I had my first son, a consulting
Mhm.
business. I had been working for a firm, opened this consulting business, and that's what I was doing. I was at home with the baby, pregnant, and I had a couple consulting clients that I was working on the side essentially. And she didn't know that. And I was like, well, I do help small businesses start up. If you're interested, I can help you through this. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. I think she got really overwhelmed by the business part of it. And so
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do this without you. So if we're gonna do it, let's do it together. And so that's where the idea was born. And she scaled what she was doing in that gym. So we were working out of a CrossFit gym. And
Yep.
so she was training, just personal training, and then she had a small group that she coached like 2 or 3 days a week. And it just exploded because every woman was like, oh, this is awesome. This is needed.
Right.
Even women that were like 6, 7 years postpartum were having similar issues. So like you're postpartum forever, right? So
Right.
she recognized like this isn't just prenatal postpartum. It's like all women. And
Mhm.
we planned the business together and we opened our first brick and mortar 3 weeks after I gave birth to that second baby.
Wow.
So yeah, when I
That
like my businesses are in parallel with my babies,
right.
like all of them. I have opened a business simultaneously with each child.
Right. Well, and I believe that the universe or God, whatever your higher power is, like it just works in full circle. Like I feel like, you know what I mean? Like you were put in place to start this small business, and then it just kind of worked its way to putting this together to help other women. Because, like you said, we are always postpartum. Your body is not the same as it
Correct.
was prior to kids. I
Right.
remember making fun of my parents. This is maybe a little bit TMI, but I remember my parents or my mom, right? My mom and my friends' moms, they were always saying, after you have kids, your boobs just like drop down to your knees, and we'd always make fun of them, like, oh, that's not going to happen to us. And no, my body won't do that. No, it does. It does. That does happen. You know, and one of the things I'll never forget when I was pregnant with my second kid, or my boy, the doctor had a nurse aide or somebody with her shadowing her. And I remember her asking me, Shay, what is the worst part about pregnancy? I said, honestly, the 2 to 3 weeks after pregnancy. And she's like, oh, that's interesting. I said, it is horrible because my pregnancy, my first one, the cord was wrapped around my daughter's neck twice. And so the doctors, I didn't have to do a C-section. We almost had to, but fortunately I didn't have to. But the cord was wrapped around her neck. Her heart rate kept dropping. They ended up having to bag her and to get her to breathe again. Yeah. But his goal was to get her out. And so he literally cut me, like just cut me open, not my stomach, but like all that in there. So my recovery was so painful. And I remember just standing in the shower and I just felt disgusting. Your stomach's flabby, your boobs hurt, everything down there. You can't even wipe. You have to use a bottle. You know, like all of it was just horrible. It's
not glamorous. That's for sure.
No, people are like, oh, you glow during pregnancy. I was like, no, I sweat a lot. That is not glow, that is sweat. But I will say, so my first pregnancy, I've always worked out, but my first pregnancy, I did not work out very much. A little bit here and there, but I gained more weight. You know, I took full advantage. Oh, I'm eating for two, you know, all of that. Well, my second and my third, I definitely worked out a lot more. And it was easier to bounce back afterwards, not only mentally, but physically as well. But you still have a lot of work. Like my body still to this day is not what it used to be. You know, you get scars, I don't know. It's not what it used to be, but you got to be okay with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's such a process too, and just being okay with where you're at any given point in time, right? And that's kind of how we approach how we talk to women too. So like when we're bringing new women in for a consultation, we're meeting the woman where she's at and recognizing that like maybe she hasn't worked out in years. Maybe she's had 4 kids and not worked out through any of those pregnancies or postpartum. And she's now finally just taking that step to like take care of herself. And so just recognizing and empathizing, I think that that's like such a huge piece to this puzzle and making that emotional connection. Because we all have our shit, right? Like we all, through pregnancy and postpartum, like some women love being pregnant. I, for one, freaking hate it. Like I hate being
I hated every bit of it.
Yeah, so do I. But the baby is like the most wonderful thing in the world. It's worth it, right? So it's just so interesting because everyone's just so different, and just understanding and meeting the person in front of you and meeting them where they're at and giving them what they need is like the most important part.
Right. So do you guys primarily focus on like postpartum or pregnancy workouts, or is it just kind of a little bit of everything?
It has evolved over time. So our niche market when we very first started was that prenatal postpartum period. But what we've recognized as we've navigated through this process, we had women coming to us preconception that are like, I want to have a baby, but I want to be in the right place when I get pregnant, right? Or they're going through fertility treatment. And so they have certain limitations in terms of, and I can speak to that too, because I went through IVF. You have certain limitations in terms of like over exerting yourself, like spiking your cortisol, like all of those things can affect your fertility. So we just recognize that the female body is just so unique, and we are such a cyclical being, and you know, we go through puberty and our body changes at that time. And then, you know, our menstrual cycle affects things in a certain way. And so we have really written programming for every stage of life. So ultimately, I would say our target demographic is ages 25 to 65. But the pre and postmenopausal, like I'm almost 40. And as we navigate into that arena, like my hormones are already changing. I really do believe that some of my fertility issues were because I have very early symptoms of perimenopause. And so I think that being able to cater to each stage of life and making those changes within the workouts to be able to adapt to what their needs are. It's important, and it's becoming more and more evident in the research. It's becoming more and more evident in the media and like what we're seeing and reading. And so I think we're just like one step ahead of the curve in terms of providing that service.
That's amazing. So then do you also help people with like their diet and their nutrition as well then?
Yeah, so we don't claim to be the expert in the resources that we provide, but we have aligned with clinicians that we feel and we vetted over time really fit the mold and are able to serve our clients in the best way that we possibly can. We're the expert in fitness, so we have aligned with a dietitian. Her name is Nicole Legler, and her business is called Always in Motion Nutrition, and she's kind of scaled her business along with us. So she's able to provide services to all of our clients in our local location, but then also as we continue to scale, she's bringing on other dietitians and coaches that can then serve the women in those communities as well. So it's interesting because there's a lot of different viewpoints and areas of focus. And so we really wanted to make sure we had someone that was well versed in women's health and understood hormones and understood the cyclical changes throughout a woman's life. And so she is that. And again, like I said, we're not the professionals in nutrition, but we're going to send you someone who is.
Right. And I love that you guys do that, because I think as entrepreneurs, especially when we first get started, we want to do it all. Because we don't have the means to be able to leverage and utilize other people. So we try to do it all. So we try to learn the nutrition, we try to learn the fitness, we try to learn the marketing and the advertising. Mm-hmm. And you're wearing, 5,000 different hats, plus trying to, have a life at home with your kids and family. So I love the fact that you guys recognize that you're not the professional in the nutrition side, but you partner alongside with another person to be able to refer. Because I think it's Warren Buffett, you don't need to know everything, but you need to know those who do. You don't need to know everything in life, but you need to know the professionals who do know the things in that realm and that aspect. Like that's like with me in real estate. I mean, I'm not going out there and doing my photos and photography for my listings. Heck no, like that wasn't even an option. And I have an Airbnb, like cleaning. I don't clean it too, because I hate it. I'm fine. I can clean, but I don't love it. It's not where I enjoy my time. So there's just things in your business that you have to just give it to somebody else to handle, even if it eats into your budget a little bit, that's only going to be temporary, because you should be able to focus on where your more income producing activities are to be able to grow and scale your business.
Right. Like there's going to be more of an ROI if you're able to focus on marketing or getting out and selling more or networking, where is your time best spent in order to make a greater return, and cleaning is not one of them. So
no, I like I've had to I'll go there and clean once in a while, because just the timing and my cleaning people can't get there and whatever.
Same.
It is I'm in such a bad mood when I'm there. I don't like doing this. I hate doing this. I don't want to be doing this. Even though I love my Airbnb, it actually used to be an old church and stuff. So it's beautiful and there's a piece to it, but there's just nothing about it that I enjoy. Just nothing.
Yeah. I get it.
But
spent many weekends cleaning the gym when we very first opened. And that was one of the very first things I was like, oh, thank God I can pass this off. But yeah, that's just the nature of being an entrepreneur, unfortunately.
Right. But there's people out there who love cleaning. I mean, that's what they enjoy doing. Yes. And so you're providing a job for somebody else that they enjoy, and they're so much better at it. Because the other problem with being a mompreneur or an entrepreneur in general, is like, nobody can do it better than me. That's kind of the mindset we, so then we have a hard time leveraging and finding the right people. And you do want to be very picky. A good quote that I have is slow to hire, quick to fire. I mean, you want to have all that, but you want to hire slowly. You don't want to just hire somebody to throw somebody in the position, because it's not only they need to be a good fit, but you need to be a good fit for them too. So it is a slow process.
Absolutely. Totally
Yeah.
agree.
So where do you guys see? Well, actually, the other thing that I wanted, because you had made the comment earlier that you had been pregnant 8 times. Do you kind of want to elaborate on that, or do you want to stay
Yeah.
clear of it, or what are your thoughts?
Oh, no. I'm actually very open about that journey just because I work in the women's health space. And I think that the more vulnerable and open you can be about those situations, the more you can help other people. And other people's vulnerability and their experiences really helped me. So I want to pay it forward. So yes, I am very open about talking about it. I had alluded to my first 2 pregnancies that were both natural. After my second pregnancy, I had so the first one was breech C-section. Second one was I had preeclampsia. And so I had a very late preeclampsia. So my blood pressure was really high and I was going to VBAC, but they wouldn't let me. And so I ended up having a C-section the second time. And I had another complication too, from a virus that I had. And so that I had the C-section. That was a beautiful C-section. Best experience that I've had in terms of birth. He was not very big. He was only 6 pounds, 14 ounces. My first child was almost 10. So it was a huge difference. He was a peanut, but it was the best pregnancy and birth that I've had out of all of them. After that, once I stopped breastfeeding my second child, I started getting a lot of pelvic pain. And I'm like, this is not right. Like, what is going on? And I really hadn't, so I had been pregnant for 2 years straight, basically. My boys are only 18 months apart. And I hadn't had a cycle. And so every time I'd have a cycle, I'd have just this excruciating pain. And I was assuming that it was probably from my scar. And so I went up to Pope Paul in Omaha because they do what's called an excision surgery to like remove adhesions from your reproductive system. And so I went up there at the end. So he was born in January, and then I had that surgery in December. They removed a bunch of scar tissue, and we found out that I had grade 4 endometriosis. So I had endometriosis like pretty much all over my ovaries, my bowel. And so they basically what they do is they cut it out. Endometriosis.
What is endometriosis?
So it's it's a disease essentially where you have uterine-like cells that grow on other parts of your body. And so it causes pain, specifically during menstruation and ovulation. And so I had these adhesions. Adhesions is scar tissue that connects tissues together. It's essentially, it creates itself to protect your organs, to protect whatever trauma happened within your body. And so I kept getting these cysts and they weren't resolving. And that's what was causing the pain. So they removed all these adhesions, they removed all the endometriosis, and then we're like, okay, once I healed, it was that next June, we're like, let's get pregnant again. And we tried and tried, couldn't get pregnant, got pregnant in November of that year. So it was 2020. And I was 10 weeks pregnant, went to the scan, and there was no heartbeat. And so I ended up having a D&C for that pregnancy. So another surgery, right? So mind you, I've had 2 C-sections, endometriosis surgery, and then now the D&C. And so my body's gone through a lot. And so we held off for a while. We didn't try. I needed time to heal, like mentally and emotionally. And then we ended up starting to try again. And I just couldn't get pregnant. Like I was trying and trying, and then they put me on Clomid, and I tried on Clomid, and I couldn't get pregnant on Clomid. And then finally, the last round of Clomid, I had already had a consultation set up with a fertility clinic. And I was just like, I need to have a baby after all of this loss. Like, I don't think that it would sit right with me without having that last child, right? So we go to the morning that I found out I was pregnant, we had the consultation with the fertility clinic. And so a God thing, I really do feel like higher power thing, that I was under their care. It was actually an ectopic pregnancy. And so they think that it either implanted in my scar or in my ovary because they couldn't find it. So like I went for weeks every other day to get blood tested. blood tested. And then finally they had to do an endometrial biopsy to eliminate the fact that the baby was not in my uterus because they couldn't find it. And I had to take methotrexate, which is a cancer drug, to terminate the ectopic pregnancy. I had another one after that, and it resolved on its own, and then I had a chemical pregnancy. So we ended up going through with IVF. We only got 2 embryos, a boy and a girl. Penn is our youngest. He's 19 months. And they transferred that embryo, and it stuck first time. And the pregnancy went fine until about 20 weeks. I was diagnosed with vasa previa, which is it's a placental issue. So he had 2 lobes, he had 2 placentas essentially, and then like a huge vessel that connected them. And that vessel was like right on top of my cervix. So it's like really dangerous. It's more common in IVF babies, the placental issues. And so, but it ended up moving, and I was able to carry him to 39 weeks. He was also 9 pounds, big baby, big boy. He's our biggest child for sure. And we thought we were done. Had a very traumatic birth. They ended up sewing my uterus to my bladder in the surgery. Like, it was just a complete shitstorm. Like, I can't make this shit up. Like, it was really crazy. And so my husband was like absolutely traumatized. He's like, no, like our kids need no more children. Our kids need a mom more than you need another baby. Like, we're done. This is it. But I just like, in my heart, I'm like, I have this one embryo left. I have 3 boys. I know it's a girl. Like, I just couldn't leave her behind. And so like in my brain, I'm like, I need to let my body decide. I need to let my body decide. And so we ended up, my husband's 43 and I'm going to be 40 next year. So we're like, okay, if we're going to do it, let's do it now. Transferred the embryo, got pregnant right away. I'm 16 weeks pregnant. But last week we found out that I have just kind of a host of issues due to all the scar tissue, like no surprise. I'm not surprised in the findings. I think what I'm just really concerned and worried about is the integrity of my uterus. So like my uterus not being able to hold the weight of the baby for the rest of the pregnancy. So I have placenta accreta, I have a very large hematoma. And then there's some other underlying issues with my scar specifically that are giving the doctors a little bit of concern in terms of like the integrity of the uterus altogether. So I've been through a lot. I know that's like a very long story, but I think it's important to share because a lot of people like go through these things in silence and they don't talk about it. And I think that the more vulnerable and open you can be about traumas that you go through, birth trauma, pregnancy trauma, the more you can help others. And I'm hoping that like by sharing this with your audience that someone, finds a little bit of peace in understanding that like they're not alone and it doesn't have to be so isolating and it's okay to talk about it.
Well, and I want to take a moment, like everybody listen to just what she just talked about. Like, how badass do you sound and sing? And can you imagine, like, the human body in general is amazing, but the woman's body is amazing. All of that you've been through physically, but you are still mentally strong enough. And I'm sure you've had your moments where you weren't mentally strong, because we all have that. But can you imagine men went through what women did? Like after that first one, they would have been like, nah, I'm done. I'm out. Like our population would be just dwindling down to nothing. I love men, love you guys out there. But I mean, literally your story is so amazing. And you're like, no, I don't want to leave this little girl behind. I mean, obviously you're not sure what's going to happen moving forward, but like, how beautiful is that you have gone through all of this while running 2 businesses or 3, whatever it was, and raising 3 beautiful boys and having a marriage. Like that is a very beautiful, amazing story. It really is. Like people, you can't just brush over that. Like your story is so unique. I mean, that's a lot to go through. That is a lot. And I'm sure your body does not feel normal.
No, it doesn't. But I will say, Victress and like having the safe space and being around women, like empowering women and finding mental strength and strength training. Um, like I just during my last pregnancy, I can't lift now, which sucks. Like it's like probably the worst part about all of this is like I can't do what I love to like help in terms of mental health.
Yeah.
So I'm finding other ways. So like I've been doing puzzles and walking a little bit more.
I love puzzles. I love puzzles. I do. It's a weird thing for me, but I get so fixated on them.
So do
Oh,
I.
they are.
Oh, yeah. It must be an entrepreneur thing. But then but during my last pregnancy, like I squatted the most I've ever squatted in my life. I squatted like 240 pounds. I deadlifted the most I've deadlifted in my entire life. It was the most empowering experience being pregnant. And pregnancy strength is a real thing. Like you have more blood flow, you have a broader center of mass, right? So there's just so many different components to it where it makes your body just like superpowered. Like you truly are superpowered. And so to think about that and how amazing the female body is going through, like you're growing a human, but you're also able to build your body to the point where you're able to do these like freakish strength things. It's just like the coolest thing ever. And I've seen other women in the gym do it too. And it's just such an uplifting and empowering experience. And I will tell you, the majority of the women that walk through our doors, so like a few things about Victress, we don't have mirrors, we don't talk about people's bodies, we don't compare, we don't talk about our own body. So they're really like very intentional things about what we don't do in this space that really help with this. So like, and I'm pointing to my head for those that are listening. The mental health, yeah, the mental health aspect of it is truly, I think, the most empowering part of what we do.
Yeah. Well, and I've always told people, like, in any, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, your mental health is the most important thing. And for me, what I have found is that health and fitness is where it starts. I mean, it's faith and just having that quiet time for myself. But also it's my health and my fitness, because if I don't make that a priority, because when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you do good,
Yes.
and when you have more energy. So it's interesting because like holidays, I tend to overeat. But like I remember like going through the holidays, and after a day, 2 days, you just feel like sluggish and tired.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do people live like this on a daily basis? You know what I mean? Like people eat like that on a very regular basis, all day, every day. And I just couldn't imagine not having the energy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I don't eat perfect. I do pretty well. But I couldn't imagine waking up and just feeling so exhausted and tired due to my inactivity or due to my nutrition, things that I can control.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, to your point about folks that maybe have never had a healthy lifestyle, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that it comes down to like the way you're raised, the part of the country that you live in. Like I know you live in a more rural area, and there is the diabetes, the heart problems, like it is very prevalent in rural areas. And then there's no healthcare to be able to support those people in the ways that they need to be supported, or resources like Victress, or, and so like we are passionate, like we're actually bringing a location to Kearney. And I'm just really excited to be able to provide our services in a more rural area where we can pull from different towns that maybe would never have the opportunity to have that type of resource. But yeah, it's important.
Do you ever do anything like virtually, or do you think your business could go virtually to help people in more rural areas? Because like for me, I mean, I don't even go to a gym to work out because I live about 10-15 minutes outside of town. So I work out in my basement. But you have to have the willpower, because a lot of times it is easier to go to a gym and you're doing a class, people are expecting you to be there. So it is easier to have that accountability. So when you're working out from home, you're your own accountability. So you have to make it a priority and have that discipline enough to get up, especially when you don't feel like it. I would say 70% of the time I wake up, I'm like, I don't want to work out, but you still do it.
Yeah.
Especially you don't have that accountability. So do you ever see your business going more virtual where you can help people in more rural areas?
Yeah, so we do offer virtual programming. So you can purchase, it's $50 a month, have access to all of our programming. You're not going to get the community aspect or the feels, I guess, in terms of like the connection and coaching. We do have a very high quality coaching staff in all of our locations. So that is a very integral part of what we do. But we do recognize that that's not everyone's reality. So yes, I mean, we do offer that. And we're working on a bank of videos and content to be able to, so like you go to the workout and then you can click on the movements and see one of our staff members doing the movements for you so that you're able to emulate or, you know, copycat whatever a movement that is if you don't know what it is, or how it was written specifically in the programming. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes, I think, but the core competency or the core offering of what we do, the community aspect and the mental health aspect is such a huge part of that in terms of community. So we really do focus on that. But for those folks that can't make it and can't do it, we do offer the virtual option.
Right. And I agree with that. Like being in person, having that community, that's really where it's at. And that's like anytime I go to conferences, you can buy these conferences and join virtually, or you can fly out, go to the conferences in person. 100% I'm doing that. One, I don't get near as much out of something if I'm doing it virtually. And two, it's all about the networking. It's the connections, it's the relationships that you create. So one of my sponsor here with EXP, but he does a mastermind. And what drew me to what he does is his 5 core values are faith, health, relationship, business, and finances. Those first 3 things are the most important part before you can get your business and your finances in check. You know, so many people have good businesses and finances, but everything else in their life is crumbling apart. That's not success, in my opinion, because eventually your business will crumble. But it does start with your mental health. Like you have to have your mental health in check to be able to do all those other things. I mean, and it's so important. The fitness industry is so important, especially for us women when you go through those hard times. I've had a miscarriage. I didn't have to do a DNC, but I was 9 or 10 weeks pregnant. We didn't tell anybody. We had our 2 kids. They were 3 and 2. They're 20 months apart, so still pretty close. Or maybe they were 2 and 1. I don't remember. But we never told anybody. We never told our kids. And we were at a wedding when I knew I was having a miscarriage. Like I started spotting the day before. And then at the wedding, I just had a feeling, you know, I'm like, oh, and I had never, my pregnancies were fine. We got pregnant right away. My mom had never had a miscarriage. So it was very new to me. But we were at the wedding and my friends were like, you know, trying to get me to have some drinks. And because I didn't tell anybody, and they're like, are you pregnant? I'm like, no, I just don't want to drink. Well, then I go into the bathroom and I had my miscarriage. It was, I don't want to say the most traumatizing, but it was very traumatizing. I went to the bathroom and I know I miscarried right then and there. And I'm like, holy shit, do I just flush? I literally wasn't like, it was horrible. It was horrible. But anyway, so I texted my husband. I said, we got to go. I know I just miscarried. We have to go. So anyway, we walk out and I'm crying. We're carrying our other 2 kids and I have to put like a towel around my waist and all of those things, leaving the wedding. It was very traumatizing. Yeah. And I remember sitting in the vehicle and my daughter, who was 2 or 3 at the time, and she goes, Mom, are you sad about your baby? My husband and I, our hearts stopped. Like we looked at each other because we did not tell our kids. We hadn't told anybody. And we look at each other and I look back at her. I said, yeah, Riley, Mommy's very sad about her baby. It was the craziest thing. They did not know we were pregnant. I don't know if maybe they overheard at one point in time or knew.
Kids are so intuitive. I mean, now, like, you know, we shared our pregnancy complication. My oldest is 7. And so we shared that with him last week. And well, with him and his little brother, who's 5, almost 6, they automatically brought up, like, do you remember when you lost the other baby? And this is years ago, like 3 years ago. They were little. And I was in bed for days. Like I was just not okay after that first one, after the DNC. And they brought me up like a plate of food and they call it service, like because long story, inside joke in our family, but my husband jokes around that we like order him around to bring us service all the time, my kids and myself. My husband's love language is acts of service. So he loves doing stuff like that.
Oh,
But my
yeah.
boys, they remember. It's etched on their heart forever too. And I will tell you, I remember the day my mom told me that she miscarried a baby after me. So there's 4 years between myself and my little brother, and two years in. So I was 2 when she had that miscarriage, but it was like a 16, 17 week miscarriage. So it was very far along. They didn't ultrasound back then, so she didn't know anything was wrong, but she had a blighted ovum very similar to me, where there just isn't a baby. Like your body it thinks it's pregnant and the sac keeps growing, but there's like literally no baby in there. And so that's what happened to her. But like even though there was no baby, it's the thought of the idea of having a child, right? Like that child that you lost, like it's going to be etched on your heart forever and ever, right? Regardless of how you lost it, how early it was. I mean, same with my ectopic pregnancies. Those could have been like, I think about it all the time. Probably a perfectly normal baby, just not in the right spot, right? So I think that it's important to like, I don't know, like, and I don't know how you felt about this, not sharing and like not being able to be open about it, like immediately when it was happening. I'm a firm believer that like the more we share and the more we're open, the more support we can receive from the people around us.
I was very open about it. At first, like the first few days, I didn't, but I was very open about it with my co-agents. And I'm so glad I was, because they shared with me their losses and their miscarriages. And I didn't realize how common it was.
Yeah.
But the other thing that people don't talk about is that your body, even after 9-10 weeks, your body is changing. And so people don't talk about, okay, the aftermath, the hormones, your body had changed. Like I could tell that I was starting to get a little bit flabbier in the tummy and, or a little bit bigger, and then all for nothing. Like, and then that's just gone. And so people don't talk about that side of things, the mental side, the hormonal side of having a miscarriage, even if you are only 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks along. I mean, obviously the further along, it's more intensive if you have to do the DNC and all of that, but there's still a mental aspect to it when you do have a miscarriage. And it was, for me, I was very open about it. I've always been a very open person. I'm not going to hide anything. Like I was telling you about my mental breakdown last year. Like I can joke about it now, but it was the worst fucking thing I'd ever been through in my entire life. It was horrible. But, and for no reason, but it really helped when I did open up and I found out like literally everybody that was around me had a miscarriage at some point in time. And they just made me feel so much better. So I can imagine, especially like the gym that you guys are working at, you're going to be surrounded by that so much more. And it just gives you a little bit more empowerment and confidence to get shit done. Like, no, I can do this. Like they went through it. I can do it. I'm going to do it. And I'm not only going to do it for my family and my kids, but I'm going to do it for me.
Absolutely.
And there's just an empowerment about that.
There is. Absolutely. 100%.
Yes. It's amazing. It's beautiful. I mean, like think about your story in all reality, and like every woman's story, like we're badasses. We are. Like there's just something about women that I absolutely love. And don't get me wrong, I like men, whatever, but
I get it.
Like we are juggling everything. And even though like we work outside the home and we have businesses, we really ultimately still all are the sole household duty person. Like my husband helps with cooking, which is a game changer, but I'm still the one making, taking them to school every day, picking them up 50% of the time, making sure that they have their doctor's appointments and they're getting to and from their doctor's appointments and school, whatever it is. I mean, my husband helps out so much too, but it still kind of falls on the woman ultimately. Like my husband will help out if I'm like, hey, the kids have a doctor's appointment, this is the location you need to go to. I have to put it in there because I don't know where he goes sometimes. Yeah. But he'll help out with that. But I'm still the one making sure that we get to the appointments, dealing with the insurance, all of that, So but we just have to have so much more grace for us as women. We do. We need to be, we need to
Yeah, I think that it's the mental load, like yes, you may have a partner that helps in terms of like the actual action of doing things, but the strategy, and
Yes.
there's so much strategy involved. Like I always like compare
Yeah.
motherhood to business because I use my strategic brain in motherhood probably just as much as I do in like planning and operational systems
Yeah.
and literally all of the things that I put in play in business. It's like it's the same
Mhm.
tools that you use in motherhood. And
It is.
don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
my husband is like my partner and like I would consider us equals, but like it's the mental load that I think that women, and it's inadvertent at times too. I think we take that on ourselves because we have been raised that and conditioned that way. Like that's the
Mhm.
traditional way to look at things.
Mhm.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing either. Like I take pride in that, to be honest with you. I love
So
being a mom and an entrepreneur simultaneously. It's like one of the best things that I could ever do for myself.
I would agree. And I was actually just telling my husband yesterday, like us women or men too, both, genders have a masculine and a feminine side. Even men have a feminine side that they need to tap into. But especially as women entrepreneurs, we are so driven by the masculine side all day long that when we
Mhm.
get home, so let's say like date night seems to be a big struggle because we're exhausted. And when I come home and my husband's like, hey, you want to go do something? Okay, sure. Okay, well, we got to find somewhere for the kids to go. Where do you want to go eat? And I'm like, I'm done making decisions. But if I come home and he's like, hey, Shay, go get a nice dress on. I got somebody coming for the kids. We're gonna go out to eat. Done and done. Like
Yeah.
you just tell me what to do and where to go, and I will do it. But if I have to be the one to make the decisions and find somebody for the kids and figure out where we're gonna go eat, I would rather just stay home. Like
Yep.
that's too exhausting. And I think
Oh, it
that's what
is.
men
It's
don't
a lot
realize.
of work.
Not that we don't want to do those things, but I want you to take the initiative, get all that figured out, and then I'll go.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So Stassi, tell me a little bit about what is one piece of advice that you would give somebody starting out in the entrepreneur field, or maybe the younger version of yourself? And it doesn't
Um,
necessarily have to be just business or just motherhood. It could be whatever advice you have.
yeah, I think there's a lot of crossover between the two, like I've alluded to several times, but the biggest thing is relinquishing control and understanding that not everything, like you could have a million plans. You could have a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it could not go the way that you anticipate it going. I think for our mental health, understanding that that could happen and recognizing that that could happen in any given situation just puts us in the position to be able to pivot and make changes to rectify whatever that challenge might be, right? And I think when I was younger, and to any younger entrepreneur, younger person just starting out in their career, um, I felt like everything had to be just, everything had to go a certain way, and that's just not the reality of the world. And I think motherhood, more than anything, I think God has, like, I'm just naturally a controlling person. Like, I have high energy, high anxiety. Like, that's just the way that I'm wired. But this experience that I shared today, in terms of motherhood, loss, pregnancy, all of that, like, I don't, I can't control any of that. Like, none of it. And ultimately, I have to live day by day. And I have learned to pivot and like make decisions on my feet. And yeah, I think that also recognizing that you need to remove emotion. Like, it's okay to have emotions, it's okay to feel your emotions. You want to feel your emotions, but removing that from the rational thought and the decisions that you make on a day-to-day business, whether it's in your business or for your family. I have lots of feelings. Like, you had alluded to my story being badass and like, I can't believe that you're as strong as you are. All of those things. Like, yes, I have strength, but I do have vulnerable moments. And like this morning, I actually texted my mom and I'm like, I am so emotional. Like, we went to a Nar-Anon, so it's like a narcotics anonymous meeting for families, and my little brother is an addict, and so all of this is going on, and I have like kind of set the emotions to the side, but like I felt so emotionally overwhelmed this morning when I woke up, and I texted my mom, and I was just like, that was just, it has no relation to what's going on in my life, but like I just felt this loss of control, right? And I think that if I could give any advice to anyone, I think it's just understanding that like there's so many uncontrollables in this world and in this life. You just have to look at what's in front of you and not let yourself get overwhelmed by the ambiguity of the day, the ambiguity of the business, the ambiguity of the pregnancy, whatever it is, and just understand that, it is what it is. And you have to trust the higher power. You have to trust and have faith that everything is just going to work out. We've never not recovered from a bad day, right? Like everybody's always recovered from a bad day. And so just looking at it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's emotional intelligence too, and that was one of the things I was telling my daughter, because she reacted instead of responded. My older daughter stepped on her toe on accident and she hit her. My youngest did, just whacked her hard. And I was like, okay, Braylon, like what? I said, it's okay to get mad. It's okay that you're angry. I said, but what could we do? And she's like, take deep breaths or like sit on my hands, So I was like, it's okay to feel those feelings and feel those emotions, but we have to learn to respond versus react. And
Yes.
One of the like prime examples, literally I've done 30 some podcasts already, and my computer is always charged. And I had a final walkthrough. Like I was telling you, I have a final walkthrough here pretty soon. So I'm at the house. Fortunately, they're already completely moved out. Nobody's here. But normally I have a nice virtual background. I'm on my computer. I am like primed. I am ready.
Yeah.
Have lighting. And so today I was like, okay, nope, I'm not going to reschedule, because I understand and value people's time. I was like, nope, I'm not going to reschedule. I'll just do it there in my car if I need to. I got a virtual background, not a problem. Mm-hmm. And then I get here and my computer's dead. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, should I text or call Stasi and say, hey, we're going to have to reschedule? I was like, nope, we're going to do it. I guess I'm going to do it on my phone. I'm not going to have a virtual background. It's not going to be all pretty. But you just roll with it. Like I thought I had everything planned out, but I forgot my charger. And that's just how mompreneurship goes. So I apologize. I don't have the pretty background. I'm hoping this is recording the entire time. It says it is, but I'm just praying that it does. So, but I mean, you just got to roll with it. Like you're not going to be able to perfectly plan everything out, and you got to be okay with that. You got to be okay with it. So I think that was unbelievable advice, not just for new people. I mean, for everybody. So I really appreciate you sharing your story. You've obviously been through a lot, and I'm excited to see how your business grows. And I do come to Lincoln and Omaha occasionally. So I'll definitely, because you're in Lincoln, right?
Yeah, you should come and try a class sometime. Yeah.
I will. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I'll text you or call you after this. But so if anybody is interested in being part of your program or maybe purchasing the virtual option, how can they do that, or how can they get a hold of you?
The best way to contact us is through our website. So victressmvmt.com. And then you can go to whatever location is nearest to you. If you want to purchase virtual, go to the Lincoln location, and then there will be an option under our memberships.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
And that wraps up another inspiring episode of the Real Moms Podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their story and insights today. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And hey, sharing is caring, right? Share this podcast with your fellow mompreneurs, friends, and anyone who you feel could use a dose of inspiration. Share it on your social media as well.
But most importantly, if you found this episode helpful, please, please, please leave me a 5-star review. This helps get our information out to those who have never heard or seen us before. Are you feeling inspired and you're sure that you could add some value to the podcast? Shoot me a message and let's talk. We love hearing from you. So connect with us on social media. Tag me at Shay J Spitz. That's SHAEJ and share your thoughts and takeaways, or even suggest topics you'd like to have us explore more in the future episodes. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. Your resilience is your strength, and your pursuit of abundant living is truly remarkable. As always, keep thriving, keep growing, and keep embracing the beautiful chaos of being a mompreneur. Until next time, take care, stay real, and keep living abundantly.